I solemnly swear that I am up to no good.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 12 of Tales from Godric's Hollow. This is the world-renowned, Hogwart famous Harry Potter podcast you know and love as well as I do. Why? Because I'm one of your co-hosts. I'm Josh Brown. I am the muggle of the show, if you will. Slowly, I think I'm starting to shed some of the muggle baggage that I've been carrying around for the last 32 years of my life. But we'll see. We'll see how the journey goes. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, my Sherpa through the wizarding world of Harry Potter and the entire franchise, the professor of the show, Matt Sonnenberg.
It's good to be here.
It's good to be back, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Like, last week was a weird episode.
Very true. Yeah.
And not just because we had Colin on.
Nope.
I mean, he made it a little bit more weird, but, you know, talking about the movie, it didn't feel... Like, I think you'd even pointed out before we started recording last week how, like, we had just gotten into a pretty good rhythm and a good flow to the shows and how each episode was going, and then kind of threw that all out the window for last week, and...
Yep, that was. I think that was the first thing I told you when we got on the call, was that I have no idea how this episode's gonna go. The more I think about it, the less I know.
Yeah. Just don't listen back to it. I mean, Colin was great. I think everything else was,
It's true. It's a good thing we had Colin on.
Sure. But we're back. We're back doing our normal episodes as the people know it. Matt, I'm excited. We are starting book 2 in the series, in the franchise. This is Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. It's a name I'm going to learn to remember, I promise. Last week's episode. I want to talk about that for just a second here. We talked about the movie, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, which we watched to reward ourselves for reading the entire book. We read the first complete book all the way through. We podcasted about pretty much every chapter, covered the whole thing. It was my first time reading it. It was your bazillionth time reading it. At the end, though, we needed a break from reading, so we decided, let's split up these books with some fun entertainment. Let's watch the films. It worked. It worked okay. I guess I want to talk about how a lot of people seem to think that I did not like the movie. Yeah. And I understand why. I maybe came across as a little downtrodden on the film and just not super high and energetic as I would normally be. That's my fault. I did not like the film, Matt. I enjoyed the film. I really liked it. I just didn't like it as much as the book, and that's a testament to how much I liked the book, which I didn't think would actually ever happen. So,
yeah, that's fair, and I think it's when you're gonna have a discussion about the movie when we've just been discussing the book very thoroughly, you are gonna see a lot of discrepancies, and so that could definitely come off in a negative light. And I tried to avoid cutting it down too much. Like, I didn't want to point out every little discrepancy
right
between the book and the movie.
Yeah.
Because that would be our longest podcast yet.
Oh, yeah.
But it is what it is. Mm-hmm. And so I'm with you. I greatly enjoy the movies as well. But the book will always be better.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just one of those things. Like, I watching the movie made me appreciate the book that much more. And like you said, like, we were breaking down like every nitty gritty little detail of the book. We were talking about crazy cat lady babysitters in the book, for like 15 minutes on one podcast that she didn't even exist as far as the movie's concerned. So
Very true.
when we go into that much detail over 10 episodes, we were bound to have an abbreviated conversation about an abbreviated representation of the book. That doesn't mean I didn't like the movie. I guess I just, like I said, I think I learned to appreciate the book even more so after watching the movie.
Works for me.
Yeah. Which makes me super excited for all the books going forward. And and Colin kind of assured me specifically, and you kind of agreed with him, that the movies do get better as they go along. So, he liked the first movie the least out of all of them, out of all 8 films. So, I have better feelings about the film after I've let it kind of soak in, and we had a good discussion about it. So,
it's all good.
Yeah. But because we finished the first book and we finished the film, now it's time, finally, which feels like we've been waiting forever to start this, Matt. You know how hard it was to not start book 2 immediately after finishing the first one?
I wanted to as well. It feels like it's been forever. I've been waiting to keep moving on.
Yeah.
I love every book, but I just want to get you that much more into the story, knowing that there is still hope that you will finish the series. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, it's full steam ahead, my friend. I can't turn back now. I gotta know what happens. There's too many unanswered questions left hanging. The first book, it was a good isolated experience, but clearly that's not it. That's not the end of the story of Harry Potter. So, I'm excited to see where this goes. I'm excited to see where the journey takes us. I'm excited to read more. Just getting into this book just felt good. It's like, yeah, we're back to this. Before we start, normally we would do a recap. Don't need to do a recap because we watched the movie. Nothing to recap. This is book 2. This is a clean slate. The whiteboard has been wiped clean. We're starting fresh, Matt.
Yes.
I will say, I didn't know anything about what was going. So the first book, I had seen the film several months ago before reading the first book. Didn't pay that much attention to it, but I at least knew some things. Yeah. Not big things, not important things. I mean, the whole Snape debacle, that still blew my mind as I was reading it. So that's how much I was paying attention in the movie.
I think the biggest thing you knew from the movie was there was a giant with a pink umbrella.
Pretty much. And I knew I'd like him. So
yes.
So I didn't know much. But going into the second book, I feel like I know even less. Now, I know about the world. I know what to expect, essentially. I don't feel like there's going to be as many surprises going forward as there has been. And there will be less first time learning and more in-depth storytelling. So I'm excited for that. But I have scanned through quickly just because I was looking to purchase all the movies on Blu-ray. The covers of the Blu-ray films. Now, could I tell you all the names of them? Not a chance. But I did pick up some weird little creature, which I talked about last week, being on the cover for this second film/book.
Sure.
Knew nothing about it. I felt in my bones, Matt, that it was going to be something worth talking about. This episode is going to be good for that reason.
Glad to hear it.
Yeah. So you want to start off with chapter 1 of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets.
It's true. Chapter 1 was titled The Worst Birthday. As for new characters, I almost forgot to mention them because I'll just tell you right now that they're not important. Mr. and Mrs. Mason.
Okay.
They were only new characters in chapter 1. Chapter 1 is a lot of setup.
Yeah.
Thankfully, the chapter's not that long, but we did still need a little bit of setup for anybody who might just pick up this book independently and not realize that it's the second book in the series or something. Right? I mean, if you just look at the title, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, you have to. I think if you look at the spine, it will tell you it's year 2.
Right. But if you don't know what the years mean going into it, that still doesn't mean anything.
It's true.
I will say I made a specific note about the recap in this book, in this first chapter. And I thought to myself, I kind of really don't wish that these happen every single book. Like, I'm okay with it happening in the second book because we're still fresh to Harry Potter and this franchise. And, somebody like yourself and people that have read it a bazillion times don't need those refreshers. But back in the day when the second book came, I'm sure, it was a nice, helpful thing to bring people back. And like you said, anybody new coming in. But I really don't need this amount of recaps of how Harry Potter came to be every single book.
Sure. That'll be something to keep an eye out for.
Oh, God. You won't even tell me that, Matt?
It's your first time through.
And you're playing
how do you know what comes?
Chest. I don't know. I just don't want another recap of Harry Potter and how he was abandoned and his family hates him. And it was well written.
Yeah.
It just bored me to death.
Like I said, it wasn't that long, and it was interspersed with the current activities. Yeah.
And
for instance,
again, maybe it was just a product of the fact that we just read through the first book and watched the film, and
it's very true because if you were reading this when it came out, the first 2 books were roughly a year apart. There was no movie at that time. That hadn't come out yet. So the only thing you had was book 1.
Right.
And at that time, when just the first book was out, it wasn't, as far as I remember, it wasn't an instant bestseller type of thing.
Sure.
I think hardly any books, especially in a new series, are.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to assume that, maybe it took a couple months, and if someone did read it right away, they may not have realized, okay, the next book's coming out, and it might not have picked up that right away, so it could have been a couple months later, and who knows what.
Right.
But
I guess my wish is that she treats the readers and fans with a little bit more respect for the franchise as it has, as it is up until that point as we go further into the books.
Sure. It's understandable.
Like book 7, I'm really hoping that it's not like hey, remember when Harry Potter was born and almost died and then got left and learned all about wizards at Hogwarts, and I don't need that far.
Yeah, that could be a little uncomfortable.
Sure. Guess we'll see though, Matt.
We will see.
You're gonna make me find out for myself.
Going into chapter 1, one of my favorite moments is when Harry is asked to, I think, pass the bacon or something at the breakfast table, and he just kind of casually puts out, "Well, you've forgotten the magic word." And of course, he just means please.
Right.
But it gets me that the Dursleys are that kind of thick that they don't know exactly how magic works. Like, even though Mrs. Dursley's sister, her own blood, was a witch, went through school, we're assuming the full 7 years, and then some, how do you not know exactly how magic works?
They acted like the word magic was actually magic.
Yeah, it just boggles my mind how clueless they are to that world. I know they're trying to ignore it and pretend it doesn't exist, but you would think that they have to have some knowledge of what actually goes on.
You would think, but honestly, they just sound like they are pretending it doesn't exist at all.
Yeah.
You know, the less they know, ignorance is bliss, Matt.
It's true.
Yeah. Leading into this book, you know, how the first book ended, there were strong implications that Harry was not allowed to use magic, but he was kind of nudged to at least threaten to use magic in order to make his summer less miserable.
Tolerable.
Yeah. And kind of sounds like it got shut down pretty quickly. I mean, no mention of magic. You're not allowed to even, like, threaten that you're going to use magic. Like, they didn't obviously know that he wasn't allowed to use it, but Mr. Dursley just put the kibosh on that right from the get-go.
He did, but that still didn't stop Harry from time to time.
Yeah.
You could tell he got a little bit of enjoyment out of it.
Sure.
Especially when it came to his cousin Dudley.
Right.
He liked to egg him on a little bit. He got his enjoyment. He always paid for it, but
he wasn't treated any better.
No.
I mean, thankfully he still had a bedroom, but I mean, all of his stuff was locked away in the closet underneath the stairs, and I mean, his life still seemed pretty miserable, even with the ability to taunt Dudley just a little bit.
And that goes to show just how bad his life is at this house.
Yeah.
And how bad these people are.
And if they don't show this part, Matt, in the movie, I'm going to riot, because we need to see how horrible this is.
Yep.
Just throwing that out there right now, folks. Call
right.
back on this episode when we come to watch the movie. It was not unusual, I guess, but I guess I didn't really expect Harry to be completely just locked out of the wizarding world completely.
Yeah.
Not allowed to use his owl for messages. You know, obviously he can't be using magic, but not even have his textbook so he could do, you know, summer homework like he talked about and that kind of stuff. Like,
okay, just quick question on that.
Mm-hmm.
Summer homework.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever been assigned homework over the summer?
Yes.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Like, was this in elementary school, middle school?
High school.
High school?
AP classes, knowing that you're going to be like in AP English,
okay.
and next year they would give you required reading that you had to do book reports for and turn in on your first day and that kind of stuff. So,
you see, I never had any of that.
Yeah.
I even took some AP courses and never had any of that.
It was pretty miserable. I'm not going to lie.
I believe it, but it just kind of hit me. It's like, who has homework over the summer?
But at the same time, Matt, if your summer was going to be that horrible, wouldn't you want something to do like homework to at least keep your mind occupied and feel like there's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow?
Yeah, I'd be okay with it at that point, but it was so unheard of.
Sure.
You know, where I grew up,
Yeah.
so it seemed awkward.
That's fair. He was just,
but
he would have loved to just be, you know, pull a Hermione and put his nose into the book for the entire 3 months of summer.
Yes.
Just to escape mentally, emotionally. I was thinking one thing when they were kind of describing just how bad it was for Harry and how unhappy he was. I thought back to the chapter with Christmas in the first book. And the students were allowed to leave Hogwarts and go home for Christmas for the holidays, see their family if they wanted to. but they still kept the doors open for students that couldn't travel back or didn't want to stay at the school. Like, that was an option they allowed them.
Yes.
Why don't they have some sort of summer program for students that, like, don't want to go home and just want to stay there?
Most students aren't in Harry's position.
Yeah.
He very well might be the only one, and they're not going to keep the entire school open for one student.
Are the professors going on vacation? Like, I need to know what's happening in the summer months at Hogwarts. Like, where do they go on vacation? Do they leave Hogwarts? Do they go elsewhere?
Why not?
Where's Hagrid going? He couldn't live with Hagrid for 3 months? Hagrid's not going anywhere.
He could have been going to visit Norbert.
So Harry couldn't go along with him? Like, I just feel like the option isn't even there for students that don't want to leave that world, you know? He may be very unique in not wanting to go and see his family, but what if his family decided that they were going to go, I don't know, Romania and study dragons for the summer? Is that student supposed to go with them, or, you know, what about, like, summer Quidditch pickup games? Or, I mean, the ghosts are still at Hogwarts. I don't think they're going on vacation.
No.
Nearless Head Nick, he's still roaming around doing his thing.
Yeah, but they can't really take care of the students.
They don't really need to take care of him. They just need to make sure he's not endangered. Felch isn't going to, like, the Bahamas. We know he's not going anywhere.
Yeah, but he's just going to lock him up in the dungeons. Who's going to feed him?
It's still probably better than where he was at. Okay, I'm just saying. I'm envisioning some sort of summer program at Hogwarts, and this made me just want to know what goes on there during the summer months.
It's true. That could be either a book or a movie in and of itself. Just a summer at Hogwarts.
Yeah, like an internship program. Like, you're not getting credits for school. Like, you don't have to participate in lessons and whatnot, but you're still getting some sort of additional benefits, some sort of, you know, additional education for your learnings, for your studies.
More experience.
Yeah. Help, you know, clean the broomsticks and take care of Fluffy, and, you know, there's some things to do around there that could keep you busy. Get really good at chess. That was just one thing that I picked up from the first chapter.
Yeah, that's a good thought.
Yeah.
Sadly, it does not happen.
I'm holding out hope, Matt, that it happens later on.
All right. We'll keep an eye on that one, too.
Okay. Mark that down. Can we talk about Miss Dursley trying to hit Harry Potter with a frying pan?
Yeah.
I feel like that's a bit much.
What if she would have? Well, okay, I suppose we might run into a situation with Harry's, just his, when he got his hair cut when he was younger and his hair just grew back. I could see, like, if she actually connected frying pan to head, it might just, like, bounce off or something.
Right.
It probably wouldn't do much.
Still,
I'm guessing. Yeah, but it is a very violent episode, I guess. Obviously, at the end of the last episode, or the last book, there was a bit of violence with Ron getting knocked out during the chess game,
right,
and that type of thing, and Harry almost falling off broomsticks, a couple broken bones here and there, but for whatever reason, it does kind of come off as being extra violent.
Yeah,
in this situation,
it evoked much more of a stronger reaction from me with a parental figure, like, swinging a frying pan at a 12-year-old kid, trying to hit him in the head.
Yeah.
As you know, in comparison to Ron getting knocked out playing, like, this wizard chess, like, I know there were injuries that happened at Hogwarts and their adventures, and, you know, Neville Longbottom and all that kind of stuff. but because there was like the magical, fantastical element to that part of the story, it didn't feel as violent as this lady trying to hit him in the head with a frying pan.
That's a good point. One thing I was thinking is like when, say, Ron went into it, he knew what he was getting into. Mm-hmm. He knew that there was going to be danger there.
Right.
When they went into the Forbidden Forest, there was definitely a chance that something might happen. But you bring up a good point too, that knowing that it's this magical world, there's always almost a sense of danger, mm-hmm. or it doesn't seem as awful. But when he goes back home and we know that they're stamping out all magic,
right.
This is back to quote unquote real life, that life as we know it. And all of a sudden, this lady is swinging at this kid with a frying pan.
There's no one there to protect him. There's no one there to. There's not a nurse, in a medical wing that could, take care of his injuries and look after him or something like that. It's,
fix up his skull in an hour.
Right. Like if she connected and knocked him out, like, are they taking him to the doctors? No.
Nope, they're probably shoving him in a closet.
Let him ride out the concussion. Just that part specifically like stood out as, whoa, she's a super angry person. We already knew that. We know, Mr. Dursley was incredibly short-tempered, but how far somebody would need to be pushed in order to swing something like that at a child is just mind-blowing.
I think it goes to show, though, how much they don't really care about Harry.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that's why it needs to be in the movie. Anyway, that's all I had for chapter 1.
Yeah. That I'm like I said, this is a very short chapter in the grand scheme of things, and it was just intro, giving us how bad Harry's life is and what has kind of happened thus far.
Yeah. Yep.
So chapter 2 is really where we get into what's new, what's going on here. Mm-hmm. So chapter 2 is titled Dobby's Warning. And as you might suspect, our new character of the chapter is the one and only Dobby.
Boy, oh boy.
So, Dobby, house elf.
Dobby the house elf.
I have a feeling you're going to have a few comments here. So,
okay, I'll start off with this.
I'll let you go.
Giants.
Yep.
Goblins.
Yep.
Trolls.
Yep.
Unicorns.
Yep.
Dragons.
You got it.
Giant squids.
Uh-huh.
3-headed dogs.
Yep.
Centaurs.
Yep.
All these things were in the first book.
Absolutely.
I learned to just accept the fact that these creatures existed in this world.
Yep.
Then they throw out a house elf.
We're not done yet.
And I'm just like, okay, I didn't see that coming. That caught me off guard.
Not just a normal elf, but a house elf.
Specifically a house elf. And I'm like, okay. All right, you got me. You got me again. Just when I think that like we've hit the pinnacle of the fantastical creatures in this world, Dobby the house elf pops up out of nowhere, and
literally,
yeah.
But you were just like you said. In the intro, you finally got a grasp of this world, and you're ready to go, move on, see what other adventures lie ahead, and we got more surprises.
And the first chapter ended with Harry walking into his room, and he's getting ready to collapse on his bed, but he can't because somebody's already sitting on his bed.
Yep.
I'm thinking, I don't know how Hagrid got in that house without anybody knowing, but it's probably Hagrid, right? Because who else is just going to show up in Harry Potter's room unannounced?
Sure. Sure.
That's a Hagrid move if I've ever seen one. Maybe Ron or Hermione, but that didn't seem, possible at the moment. I didn't feel like it was going to be any of the professors or anything like that, because they seem to be doing fine at the Bahamas or wherever they're at for the summer. So, like, my immediate thought was, how did Hagrid get in the house? And then Chapter 2 started, and it's Dobby, and it's this house elf, and I'm just like, okay, where do we go from here?
So yeah, the only resemblance in my mind that Dobby has to an elf in general is probably his ears. And that's about as close as we get.
Yep.
Everything else in my mind is not, I guess, okay, so elves, if I say elf, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Santa Claus, North Pole.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Those are probably closer.
What do you think?
When I think of elf, I think of like Lord of the Rings.
Oh. No, not me.
Yeah.
It's the difference between us having kids and not having kids, Matt.
that very well could be. Yes. Yes. But
you gave me 3 more guesses and I wasn't coming up with elves from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. That's my background.
Okay, fair enough.
So that's what I think of when I think of elves. So when you start explaining this short little creature with giant eyes and a long thin nose, it doesn't line up.
No, not with your version of an elf.
no. But if you do go with Santa Claus, I just write it off to, okay, this is a house elf.
Right.
So it's different.
Yeah. The description itself, you're like, okay, this isn't just a normal elf.
Yes.
This is specific to houses for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Dobby's dialogue.
Yep.
Perfectly written.
Mm-hmm.
First person, talking in first person. No, third person. Third person. Right? Yeah. I'm confused.
Yeah.
Yes. When he refers to himself and says, Dobby this and Dobby that.
Yep.
Beautiful. I just absolutely fascinated immediately. Like if it was just like talking normal, like every other creature that they seem to encounter, like even the hippie centaurs, like I wouldn't have the immediate attachment to it. But because Dobby spoke so unusual, even like compared to like Hagrid per se, I was just like, I don't know what this little thing is, but I love it.
Yeah, it definitely gives you something to latch on to, something to make him different, something that will help him stand out.
Yeah.
No matter where he's at.
Right. A little quirky.
It, in a sense, is, now that I think about it, is kind of like Yoda.
Mm-hmm.
Where you can give someone one sentence. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a direct quote from him. You can form a sentence in the style of Yoda.
Yeah.
I think you could probably just about do the same thing with Dobby. Might be a little bit harder, but
Yoda is by far the most recognizable and most quoted character in the Star Wars franchise because of his speech.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Dobby.
Yes.
He's an emotional little bugger, isn't he?
Yeah. He goes off on his own path very quickly.
Off the rails. He was wow. Instant, like, I immediately became attached to him, but I had this instant compassion for him. Like when he's talking about having to punish himself by like slamming the oven door on his ears, and just like he kept talking about punishing himself for being, for doing bad things, and punishing himself because of these mistakes, and just punish. I'm like, oh my God. Like, I just want to hold this little guy and hug him and tell him that everything's going to be okay and that he doesn't have to hurt himself anymore. Like, I went into like just Papa Bear mode, and I just wanted to just coddle him and tell him the world isn't as scary as he thinks it is, because I felt like super compassionate for him, and then he's just turned out to be just completely psychotic.
Yeah, that's one word for it. Yeah. My thoughts was he's just so hard to predict where he's going to go next or how he's going to react to something that even when you think you're going to console him or somehow get ahead of him to kind of control his reaction a little bit, as Harry tries to do when he's trying to keep him quiet. He's like, it's okay. But then that just sets him off in another direction.
Yeah.
It's like, no one's ever been this nice to me. I'm like, no, you're not grasping what I'm trying to do here. It's great that you think I'm being nice and pleasant and wonderful to you, but please do me a favor and just bring it down a couple notches.
Yeah, he goes from like self-pity and loathing to I can't believe somebody's complimenting me. Like, I'm going to have another emotional breakdown because I can't handle the niceness, you know?
Yeah.
Like, just complete overload on both ends of the scale. There is no middle ground with this character. It's one extreme to the other, back and forth like a yo-yo. He mentioned he belonged to a family.
Yes.
I'm like 99% sure they didn't say which family he belonged to.
I believe it is a mystery at this point.
Okay. That's what I thought. I can't wait to find out which family he belongs to. Who would be so mean to this little guy? Like, I feel like he is emotionally scarred because of the family that he lives with. Like, I started wondering if he has been with the Dursleys forever.
And hasn't shown himself to Harry until now.
I don't. Maybe he's been locked in a closet underneath the other set of stairs. Who knows? But like the way this family was treating the little guy, I was like, man, this is like the future of Harry Potter.
And well, I mean, you have to assume that it's not the Dursleys because we do know that he is magical,
right?
And there's no way they would allow something like that to live in their house, even if it was locked away.
I just didn't think there was a family that could treat somebody so horribly in comparison to the Dursleys. And then apparently there's this other family that treats Dobby so bad. And
well, there you go. It's the magical version of the Dursleys.
Yeah, but then again, I don't know if I could trust him. Like, I don't, what he's explaining and how bad he's treated, I don't know if that's accurate. This little guy is all over the place.
Yep.
His version of the events could be very, very extreme compared to what they actually are.
Yeah. Yeah. At this point, Harry has no background of Dobby and has to decide whether or not he's telling the truth. And when someone stops all your mail from coming to you, the only thing you've been looking forward to all summer, basically.
Right.
Do you really want to trust this person?
So I had a question about that.
Yeah.
How did he do that? Has he been at the house since summer began? How is he preventing the mail from getting to Harry Potter on a regular basis? Because it wasn't just one letter that he intercepted.
True. Well, it kind of goes along the same lines as how do the owls know where to deliver the mail? There's definitely
GPS.
some magical quality given to these owls somehow. And one way or another, Dobby is either, I don't know, channeling the owls, or maybe he was just hanging out on the roof or something, and every time he saw an owl, he grabbed the letter.
I'm just curious about that, because it made it seem like him leaving the house to come see Harry Potter, it felt like this was like the first time that he left the house because he wasn't supposed to leave the house, because that would result in him having to smash his ears into the oven door. Dobby. But then it's like, so if this is the first time leaving, how is he getting the letters? How is he intercepting them? So
Maybe there is some sort of magic that was put on that, like magic emanates from the house because Harry's there, but Dobby was magically able to redirect that location to his house. So all the owls delivering for Harry Potter delivered to his house.
Maybe
he magically changed the GPS coordinates.
I'll believe that. So I have some questions about just house elves in general.
Okay.
Which you probably can't answer.
I'll do my best.
There'll probably be questions that will be answered for me later on. But so he mentioned he is with the family in the house until he dies.
Yes.
I want to know the life cycle of a house elf. What's the life expectancy of these things? Are we talking like tortoise status, where they're going to be around for a couple hundred years, passed on from generation of generation?
Yes.
Okay. They do stick around for a while.
Yeah, that's safe to say right there. Yeah, they do have a very long life expectancy, longer than most witches and wizards.
Okay. So they do live long enough to see the next generations of the family come through.
Yes, they belong to that's why it's important that they belong to the family and kind of the family name, not just necessarily a specific person.
Sure. Okay. Does every magical household have a house elf? Is it like a requirement? Are they issued by the governing body of wizards? How does this program work?
No.
Okay.
We will definitely learn a lot more about how it works in the future. For now, I will say, in Dobby's case particularly, he is not okay. Not every house has one.
Okay.
We'll start there.
Okay.
Unfortunately, in Dobby's case, he is essentially a slave.
That's what it feels like.
Yep.
Kind of get this vibe that like the wealthier, richer families probably have house elves.
That's a pretty good assumption.
Mm-hmm. Like the Weasleys, per se.
Sure.
They probably have enough kids to where they probably don't need a house elf. Like, he would probably just get lost in the mix anyway with all those freaking kids.
Yeah.
And you would think that, like, Ron or Hermione, like, would have mentioned, oh, yeah, I'm going to go home and hang out with my house elf all summer. You know, like...
Yeah, it seems like something that Ron would have taught Harry about.
You would think.
Yeah.
So, okay. Those are my main questions about house elves.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But I think this is probably a good time to bring up the Muggle poll for this week, because you kind of got your feelings on Dobby, your first impressions, and that's what I was going after. Because I think Colin might have brought this up in our last episode. Actually, I'm trying to remember if that's off air or on air, but I believe he told you or mentioned that I don't remember if he mentioned Dobby by name or if he just mentioned that there was going to be a character that you would fall for. Mm-hmm. And I kind of disagreed with him.
Right.
Not that you wouldn't like him, but I don't love him as much as a lot of people do.
Sure. I can see why.
And I kind of brought this up a little bit with my family over the weekend, and I found that I am definitely not alone on my side of it.
Sure.
So it's kind of I kind of wanted to see where everybody else was.
Yeah.
And obviously, a lot of people have future knowledge, And so I tried to limit this to, what was your first impression after reading these 2 chapters? What is your impression of Dobby?
Right. Well, my impression changed from the moment we met him to like the midpoint of just the conversation Harry was having with him to the end of the chapter. I felt like I was going on the same type of roller coaster that he was emotionally. How I felt about him changed. It was ebbs and flows with how the character was so sporadic. So, my first impressions are all over the board. Yeah. If we're containing it to just, first impression equaling chapter 2.
Yeah. So by the end of chapter 2, where do you think you would stand?
I don't know. I still feel bad for him. I love the writing of the character, how he's described, the language. I feel super compassionate for him, but at the same time, he's kind of a jerk, and I don't know if he's trustworthy. I don't know which family he belongs to, and what kind of shady going-ons are going on over at that side of the world. Just so many unanswered questions about this character. I don't know where I'm conflicted, Matt.
Yeah. And we'll bring that up again when we hit the movie, I guess.
Sure.
But so as far as the poll goes, I gave them the options of I love Dobby, I hate Dobby, I'm skeptical of Dobby, or I don't understand Dobby.
You should have had a fifth option. For all 5, all 4.
If Twitter allowed it more than 4 options, I probably would have had more. But obviously, yes, some of these could be taken in different directions, but it's best I could do.
Yeah,
so
sure. What would the fans say?
I was a little surprised at how spread out across the board it was. We're looking between 13 and 40%. So no one was like, well, I guess we do obviously do have a winner with I love Dobby. Don't understand came at 29%. Am skeptical of came at 18 and 13% for hate.
Yeah.
But still, there is a contingent for each of those answers.
Absolutely.
And I think your reaction throughout the chapter shows just exactly why there is.
Yeah.
And he is a bit of a mystery at this point, and it's hard to decide what you want to do with him.
Yeah, Harry's conflicted. Like, he doesn't know what to think. He doesn't know how to talk to the thing. He's definitely not afraid to make a point in whichever way he needs to do so.
Yep.
Even if that means getting Harry in trouble. Like, Harry tried reasoning with him. He's like, that's a bad idea. Don't you dare drop that bowl of pudding. And he's like, psh, if you ain't listening to me, this has to be done. Sorry. And he didn't really hesitate. Like, when it came to listening to Harry's reasoning, it didn't matter.
Yeah. For how much he claims to love and care for Harry and want what's best for Harry,
right?
He seems to do the exact opposite.
Sure.
What Harry wants right now is to hear from someone in the magical world. He cut that off.
Yeah.
What Harry wants is to not get in trouble with his aunt and uncle, but Dobby keeps making too much noise. His uncle actually came up to the room and tried to make him be quiet. I mean, he didn't know who or what was making the noise. He just blamed it on Harry, of course. But the fact is, Dobby didn't care about that.
Right.
He didn't care that Harry was getting yelled at. He went downstairs and purposely made more trouble for Harry. He did that knowing that Harry was going to get in trouble.
Right.
And
it was frustrating.
Yeah.
But you also have to look at it as in, of all the things that he was doing, despite loving Harry Potter and just being completely enamored with him, and the legend that precedes Harry Potter, is there something to his warning about not wanting him to go to Hogwarts because it's going to be just an awful idea if he does? Like, is there some merit to that warning? Does he know more than we assume he does?
But you would think, at least I would think, if there really is something going on, why can't he just tell him that instead of just trying to interrupt Harry's life as much as possible and make it even more miserable?
Because he's an emotional enigma, Matt. He can't even control himself.
Yeah,
that's why.
Yeah.
So, one thing I noticed.
Mm-hmm.
Dobby used magic.
Yes.
Bad deal. Harry got in trouble. Just, the world kind of collapsed down on Harry in that moment.
Yeah.
On top of all that, within 12 minutes of magic being used in that household,
yep,
a letter was delivered reprimanding Harry Potter for using magic in the Muggle world.
Yes. This is what we call express mail.
12 minutes!
Not only did they have time to write the letter or get notified somehow that Harry used magic, but write this letter, send the owl, and we don't know exactly where the I think it comes from. Well, I don't know if it directly said, but it basically comes from the Ministry, or at least a department in the Ministry of Magic.
Yeah.
And
it was signed by a name I wasn't familiar with.
That's true. I perhaps should have added her in my list of names.
Because the whole letter was being read, and I was like, it's going to be Dumbledore, it's going to be Miss McGonagall, like, it's going to be somebody I'm familiar with. And then it's this other name. I'm like, who is this?
Yep. Mafalda Hopkirk. Yeah, she is not someone we have met before. So there's a mention of a new character for you. Yeah, she works for the Ministry in the improper use of magic office.
I'm sure that's a busy office.
We will get some more on that, definitely. But
I just have a feeling Harry's not the only one doing, even though it wasn't even him, getting in trouble for that kind of stuff.
Yeah. There are more 11-year-olds out or 12-year-olds out in the world.
There's also a couple Weasley twins that aren't, I wouldn't trust as far as I could throw them. So,
yes.
12 minutes though. Like, I was just like, that's incredible, and the worst luck of just everything that just happened to Harry at this moment. On top of all that, threat of expulsion.
The more I think about it, the more it makes it feel like they were almost tipped off, kind of thing. It's like, watch this house tonight. Something might go down.
Dobby, he has a tracking collar. He has like one of those tracking chips on him. Who knows? So in my head, reading through this, Harry's in trouble. Like they install bars on his window. Just complete lockdown, right?
Yes.
From this point on. And all I could think about, have you seen the movie Step Brothers?
Once, a while ago.
Okay. I can't remember which one of the two characters, whether it was Will Ferrell or John C. Reilly.
Yep.
Yells out, "This house is a prison," because they're grounded.
Sure.
And that's all that quote kept like circulating in my head as like this whole explanation about how they're essentially turning this house into a prison for Harry Potter to complete, complete lockdown. God, poor kid.
Yeah. And what I went back to is because they kept describing it as with the bars on the window, and did they even mention like he felt like he was, maybe he just felt like he was trapped or something, but
They were delivering his food through a slot in the door. Let him out to go to the bathroom once in the morning, once in the evening.
But it was a sentence right at the end of the chapter, and someone was goggling at him through the bars at him, and that made me think back to what we talked about in episode 4, when they were at the getting onto the train,
Mm-hmm.
and Mrs. Weasley was like, "The poor boy isn't something you goggle at in zoo."
Right.
And the more you think about it, they really kind of put him in that position again.
Yeah.
They locked him up in a room, not quite a cage, other than the fact that they did put bars on the window.
Right.
And now there's someone looking at him through the bars.
It's Ron!
That it is.
Who else would be
That
a
it
freckled red-haired boy looking at him through the window? I'm so excited.
Yep.
Why is Ron there? Was he called? Is he looking for his friend? Is he wondering, hey, how come Harry's not writing back? What's up with this?
Yeah.
Why is Ron there? I can't wait to find out.
Oh, yeah. We're going to find out. That's for sure.
Next week.
And things are going to start to get really good.
I feel like the ramp up to action in this book was a steady incline. Like, chapter 2, boom, we're hitting strides here.
Yep.
I don't know where it's going. I just know I want Harry out of that house. I want him back at Hogwarts. I want to find out where this crazy little house elf is from, why he's important, what he knows. I do not like the situation right now, but knowing that Ron is there makes me feel a little bit better.
As it should.
Mm-hmm. A little bit of hope for next week.
Yep, we have a lot to look forward to.
Yep, absolutely. So next week we'll be reading chapters 3 and 4, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. So be sure to read along with us if you'd like to. We definitely encourage it. If you have any emails, you could always send them to talesfromgodricshollow@gmail.com. Matt, did we have any emails tonight?
In fact, we did get one just before the show started.
Just in the nick of time, you say?
Just.
Huh. It's like
You wanna
magic. The Owl delivery service always comes through in the clutch.
Oh, yeah. They know just when to deliver things.
Mm-hmm. Now, if I had to guess, Matt,
Yeah.
who was sending an email so late that you literally opened up the email seconds before we hit record on this podcast?
I did.
My first guess would be longtime member of our fantastic communities, none other than Atari Alex.
You would be 100% correct.
He's notorious for sending late emails.
It just blew my mind. I was not expecting to see this email. It's a good thing I checked them right away.
Yep.
Right before we started. Actually, it's a good thing that you sent me an email right before we started.
Right.
So I checked the email to make sure it was there. And lo and behold, someone else had also sent me email.
Some things had to happen in order for this to actually be read on this podcast. And
Yes.
somehow they happened perfectly. I can't be too mad at Atari Alex because he did send me this wonderful Hagrid pop vinyl figure that I'm holding currently and who sits with me during the recording of each one of these episodes. So, what did Alex have to say?
Well, this is where it gets even better. Dear Josh and Matt, longtime listener, first-time writer. Sorry for not sending in thoughts about the first movie last week, though in my defense, you usually don't give a lot of heads up before you record for me to write in an email.
Hey, Matt. Let me stop you right there, Matt.
Yep.
If somebody wanted to know when we were recording and what chapters or movie we were going to be recording about, where would be the easiest place for somebody to find that information?
you could go over to talesfromgodricshollow.com and our entire recording schedule for the first book and the second book can be found there.
So, Alex, and anybody else out there listening who thinks that we don't give enough heads up or warning as to when we're recording, you have the entire second book schedule laid out for you as we are planning it. So, unless we're already talking about the third book here, you don't really have excuses as far as sending emails late.
It's a very good point.
Mm-hmm. Continue.
To put it briefly, the movie isn't perfect, but it's enjoyable overall. The common theme with all the movies is trading the amazing details in the books, like Uncle Vernon's increasing madness over running away from the letters, and the long process of Harry finding the right wand. Third pick, really? They couldn't even do a jump cut to make it seem like it took a while. For spectacular visuals like Harry's first visit So for spectacular visuals like Harry's first visit to Diagon Alley and the Quidditch match. Then there are the weird details, little details they changed from the book to the movie, like the sign in the zoo saying the snake's species was from Burma, not Brazil, or that they never mentioned Dudley's pigtail being removed. But I digress. The adult actors are all fantastic, and while the child actors' performances tend to fall a little flat or be too over the top for me at times, I let it slide because they are young. I have more thoughts on the movie versus the book argument, but I'll save that for the next movie episode. Also, the music is incredible.
Yeah.
So that's the first half of his email.
Okay.
Addressing last week. And I would like to point out, I just read this recently for some reason. I think it was when I was just looking up stuff about the movie. But somewhat they pointed out in a, I think it was an interview with the director, that you may notice in the first movie in particular that when the kids are on screen, it might be a bit choppy, where they jump a lot from a wide out shot to a close up shot of the kids and then back out, and it was because it basically comes down to, yes, they are young. And for most of them, this was their first major production.
Right.
And the problem was they all got along so well that they all tended to make each other laugh a lot. And so they would get into these shots and they'd be going along, and, something in the middle of the day would start to make them laugh. And it was really hard to get them settled back down. So they really had to just kind of splice the film together with the good shots that they got.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That I have a feeling like Stranger Things was probably the same way on set.
I believe it. Yeah.
Seeing those kids like outside of the show, I'm just like, they had so much fun shooting that show, I bet.
Yep.
That's funny.
But yeah, they did mention too that it gets better as you go on. So yeah,
I bet once they got more comfortable in the roles. And
yes, and understand what that it helps if you can control your laughter and get through the shot and
be professionals, you freaking 12-year-olds.
Anywho, on to Chapter of Secrets. The first chapter is very boring. I get that it's necessary to catch up people who read the first book when it first came out and didn't reread it when the second book came out, or to act as an introduction to anyone who hasn't read the first book but decided to read the second one for whatever reason, as we kind of talked about. But that doesn't change the fact that it's still boring for everyone who has to read the Philosopher's Stone recently.
The what?
I don't know what book. I'm not sure what book you read.
Yeah, Alex, you're reading the wrong books, my friend.
And I also don't think it's a particularly well done recap either, which I think we kind of disagree about.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty solid. It was to the point.
Yeah, it's. I thought it worked out well.
Yeah,
I would agree. Yeah, it's a little boring, but
sure.
it works. The second chapter, on the other hand, is quite good. It does a great job of setting up intrigue for the rest of the book. Introduces Dobby, a strange character who leaves us with more questions than answers.
True.
particularly about how house elf magic and the bureaucracy of the Ministry of Magic work,
Very true.
and shows us that even though Harry's life was great for 10 months, nothing has changed for him since he got back to the Dursleys. I'm very curious to hear Josh's reaction to these developments. Thanks, Alex.
Well, Alex, I hope I served you well with my reactions on this episode. Thank you for writing in.
Yeah, very much appreciate it.
Absolutely.
But that is the only email we have this week, so
Yeah, feel free to write in, folks. If you want to talk about the chapters, if you want to talk about how wrong I am about something, if you want to laugh about, my wild predictions, if you want to congratulate Matt for hanging in there and sitting through me while I go through all this nonsense in my head, whatever you want to write about, please feel free to do so at any time. It doesn't have to be right before the show.
Yep.
If you want to pull in Alex, you could do so also.
The email address is open all week.
Yes, absolutely. That's a cool thing about emails.
Yeah.
You don't need to rely on owls to deliver them at normal business letter hours. One final thing here before we sign off, Matt.
Sure.
I am going to be putting up a giveaway.
Ooh.
Not quite as awesome as the previous giveaways of the complete set of books and Blu-rays, but next week, wave or season or series or year, however you want to label it, 2 of Lego Dimensions is being released.
It's true.
And we are going to have a pack from Harry Potter released in this first wave. So I think I'm going to give away 1, maybe 2 of those.
I like it.
I think I'm going to do it on Twitter,
Okay.
in conjunction with the Toys for Games Twitter account, specifically aimed towards the Tales from GH Twitter account. Trying to get people more engaged and activated over there. Keep in touch with us and, keep the conversation going over on Twitter. So those giveaways will be going up probably tonight or tomorrow. If you have planned, if you already own Lego Dimensions and you're planning on getting those, maybe wait, because I'll probably be ending the giveaway next Tuesday on the release day. Just so, don't rush out and buy them first thing in the morning in case you win them later on. That's all I'm saying.
Yep.
If you could wait a few hours to find out if you win or not, it might be worthwhile for you. But yeah, that should be fun.
Yeah. I will be honest, I don't think the timing could be any more perfect for this giveaway.
Mm-hmm. And even if you don't have Lego Dimensions, you're still going to get a cool Harry Potter and Voldemort minifigure and builds of different things, which I don't even remember what they are yet.
One is the Hogwarts Express.
That's right.
And one is the Ford Angelica, which is why I said this is a perfect time for...
This is the car, right?
This is the car.
Okay. Still don't know anything about the car.
You will very soon.
And that was one of my complaints when they announced the Harry Potter was coming to Lego Dimensions. I'm like, I don't know what's important about this car or the train. Like, I know who those 2 characters are. Obviously, I know about the train now. But if you promise me that the car is very timely, then I'm excited.
Yes.
Because it's about time. I mean, obviously, we know Harry Potter's parents were allegedly killed in the car crash, which probably wasn't a car crash, but something. We've heard references to a car a couple different times.
Sure.
So be on the lookout for that. It'll be on Twitter at Tales from GH. I'll be tweeting those out and just follow the rules as the tweet indicates, and we'll be good to go. Give out a couple of those packages. Yeah, I mean, if you have Lego Dimensions, cool. If you don't have Lego Dimensions and you just want some cool Harry Potter swag, there it is for you also.
Yep.
If you hate Legos, well, you probably shouldn't enter. If you have small kids, please be aware of choking hazards. But yeah, it's gonna be fun, Matt. It's gonna be fun.
It will.
With that being said, let's go ahead and sign off here. You could find me personally on Twitter at the Noise with a Y, and like I've already alluded to a few different times. Please follow the show on Twitter at Tales from GH. And Professor Sonnenberg, where can people find you at?
You can find me personally on Twitter at As a Matter of Matt. Or, as we mentioned a couple times already, if you want to email the show, you can contact us at talesfromgodricshollow@gmail.com.
If you like tweets about Packers, boy, oh boy, you're going to be following the right account. I can tell you that. Go Packers.
Go Pack, go.
Not as good as Fly Eagles Fly.
No.
That's a solid hashtag. I'm quite impressed with that. Anyway, this isn't the time or place for football talk. Thank you all for listening. We'll be back next week. Episode 13, we'll be covering chapters 3 and 4 of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. I can't wait. I hope you guys are as excited as I am. Until next time, Muggle out.
Mischief managed.